Before we start the video, I want to say thank you so much for helping me get to 6,000 subscribers. All of you have been super helpful in growing the channel, and I wouldn't be here right now without it. That's all I have to say for now, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. I live in France, and this story happened to me this summer, just after the lockdown ended. I was, and still am, 19 at the time. After the lockdown ended, I went to my grandparents to spend a few weeks. I got tested before, and no problems there. My grandparents live in a small city in the north of France, and they have a dog who's quite a bit big. When I was really young, I lived with my grandparents for a year, and at that time the dog was only a puppy. Her name was Chippy, in French, which means little devil in English, but in an affectionate way. Considering when I was living there, I played with her a lot. We were both really close, and that will have an importance later. Two of my hobbies are having long walks and running. Thus, every evening I go out for a long walk with the dog. There's a track that follows a path through the forest, then there's a small hill, and on the top there's a big place with lots of fields there. I've run there a lot, so I know the place. The air is fresh, and it's quite a beautiful view. So I was going there with the dog every day. It was also helping my grandparents to have their dog have lots of exercise. The first time we went, there was nothing special happening. We just enjoyed our walk. It's about 6 to 7 kilometers, so basically an hour walk. The next day when we arrived at the top of the hill in the field, it was probably around 10 p.m., but there was still some light because it's summer. There was 3 persons walking the field. They were younger than me, probably around 15 to 16. I also noticed that they were smoking, so my guess was that they used to come up here, so they couldn't be seen by their parents. We went past them, I greeted them, and they greeted back. Once again, nothing special there. For a whole week, I did this walk around the same time, 10 p.m.-ish, and passed by the 3 guys with nothing special happening. And it was perfectly fine with me this way. The second week, as usually, I went on a walk with the big dog Chippy, and arrived at the field. There was only one of the 3 boys, and he wasn't smoking this time though. When he saw me, I was at the entrance of the field, just after a little hill climb, so the entrance of the forest was just behind me. He did a sign with his hand to catch my attention, and asked if I had a lighter, which I actually had in my pocket. I told him, yeah, sure, so he walked to me, the hand in the pocket of his hoodie. When he came near, for some reason, I felt a shiver. It's crazy how sometimes your instincts know there's a problem, but you don't listen to it because nothing looks weird to you. I hand over the lighter when he passed by. At that moment, my dog was staring at him. Then everything happened really fast. He did a really fast movement with his hand coming from the hoodie, and I only saw something shining. I just had a reflex of throwing myself back, so hard that I fell down, and I just realized that he had a knife he was holding, and he tried to stab me. What saved me is my dog, God bless her. When she saw the guy trying to stab me, she jumped on him, and he fell down. As I said before, it's a really, really big dog. I immediately got up on my feet and heard something in my back. From the entrance to the forest, I saw the 2 guys wearing animal masks running to me. They were probably the 2 friends. In the moment, your brain acts for yourself. You don't think at all. In this case, the answer he found was really simple. The other guy was still on the ground, and I was just watching the dog, and told her, run. I started running and she followed me, but I heard the worst possible thing from the guy who got up as well. Catch him! Don't let him go! At this moment, I was totally terrified. I was just running, and I was hearing them run behind me. I was only thinking, how long will they follow me? Who the hell are they? This was the first time I was really happy to be a runner. I was clearly better than those guys, and that totally saved me, because they chased me for something that felt like an eternity. Fortunately, at the end of the field, there's another entrance to the forest, and this time, it's a descent with the road at the end. I heard the steps of the three guys vanishing as I arrived at the end of the forest, though I didn't stop running until I arrived at my grandparents' house and locked myself. I caught a big breath and gave a huge hug to the dog. I saw in her eyes that she totally understood what had happened, and I'd never been so happy to have her in my life. After that, I told everything to my grandparents. We called the police and they didn't find anyone. I don't know what those guys wanted, but the animal mask really made me think about some kind of Satanist. I really don't want to know anyway. I still do take long walks with Chippy the hero dog, but I now go earlier and to places with a little more people. I hope you enjoyed my story, and I apologize again if I made any mistakes. And to the three guys in the forest, let's not ever meet again. About 5 years ago, I was volunteering in a listening service that was only aimed at helping children up to 18 years of age. A lot of training was required for this role, even though it was an anonymous phone service. If a child presented with a dangerous situation, and we had their permission, then we would call the appropriate authorities, i.e. the police or social services. After a few weeks, I was feeling settled in, and I'd taken many calls. The majority were just kids joking around, but there were many tough calls too. Most evenings after I'd finished my shift, I would feel so overcome with emotion that I would fight back tears on the way home in my car. Having a small child of my own often made it harder to forget about. One phone call in particular really startled me, and to this day I often think about it. It was about 9:45 p.m., 15 minutes before my shift ended, and I was sitting around. I hadn't taken a call for over an hour, and time seemed to be moving slowly. My phone rings, and a petite, soft female voice says, "Hello." I introduce myself giving a fake name, as I always do, and tell her a little bit about the service, and about what we do and what we would do if someone's in danger. She says almost immediately, "I need help. I'm babysitting my younger sister. She's only about 2 months old, and I'm 9. She's diabetic and she's turning blue. My mother and father are gone out. Please help." I felt as though all my training had gone out the window. I was panicking, but tried my best to keep my thoughts clear and my voice clear. "Go outside and get help. Go and knock on a neighbor's house, and call the nearest adult you see," I insisted. The little girl talked to me through her steps and said she had the baby in her arms and was out in the street. Listening to the noise of the traffic and sounds of the night air, my heart was beating fast, aching to know what was going to happen and feeling so helpless. I could hear the little girl speaking to someone, but I couldn't make out what was being said. Next of all, a lady came to the phone. "I have them. Hello? Hello? I have them both. I'm going to take them to the nearest hospital." I thanked the lady, and she told me that the help was on the way. I ended the call, and once I gathered myself, I informed my supervisor. She was as shocked as I was when I gave her all the details. She called the hospital in the area that the girl had given me, and she also called the police. After an hour of filling out the mandatory documents, my supervisor followed up the inquiry about the call we'd received, and they said that they had no such cases, finding it quite strange. We finished off writing the notes and shut down for the night. The next shift wasn't until the following week, which I was grateful for. I needed the time off. When I returned after my week off, my supervisor called me into her office and informed me she had gone through my notes in the call I received and had gone search the system for similar scenarios and keywords. She told me that every caller had a profile, and that the girl who called was a frequent caller, and that she wasn't a little girl, but a lady in her early 30s in a psychiatric hospital, and she liked to pose as different people, but mostly as children. This creeped me out considering the nature of the service, and the fact that an adult was abusing the service. This information angered me and also disturbed me. I feel silly and naive as I believe this girl's story. Over the next few months, she called a few more times under different descriptions, and always posing as a vulnerable person. I wasn't there for much longer, but that story always gives me creeps when I think about it. Long-time lurker, figured I'd share my story. I was living in Tbilisi a few years ago, the capital republic of Georgia, running a kind of legally ambiguous customer credit operation. When I figured it was time, I took a much-needed weekend getaway in a nearby small town. The town I settled on is an extremely popular tourist location, given its beautiful location among the river, nestled in a deep valley and rifled with ancient churches, with many options for potential guest houses, hotels, and rentals. I decided not to book in advance, and to just trapeze around until I found something appropriate. I found a very adequate guest house, perched on a hill with about a 1-acre plot. Upon entering the guest house, I was greeted in a typical Georgian fashion by an incredibly hospitable woman in her 60s to 90s. Hyperbole, but former Soviet Union is like that age-wise. And her son, who was in his early 30s, who resumed his yard work of filling a large hole he said was a septic tank with a foul lingering smell. After a brief introduction, again in typical Georgian fashion, the hostess offered me tea, homemade wine, bread, and cheese, all of which were much needed and fantastic. I'm an American, but my family came from Eastern Europe, so I speak Russian, as most Georgians do, so we were able to chat a lot. Our conversations progressed from basic get to know you, bits of more personal information, like whether I'm seeing anyone or who I'm dating, which does come up in a surprisingly frequency when you meet sweet grandmothers who want to meet their granddaughters. At the time, I was dating a fellow expat from a Western European country. When I told the hostess that I was seeing someone, she seemed thrilled and asked me to show her photo. She reacted with, "Aha," and nodded in approval, commenting on her physique in a way that would probably be inappropriate, but it was cute for an old grandma. I was then impressed by the hostess as to why I didn't invite her, and how this isn't what a good boyfriend would do. Put on the spot like this, I lied, and said she was very busy with a work project. And she wasn't, but would be arriving at a later time in the evening. She didn't ask. The hostess was elated by the news and called over her son, and asked me to show the photo of the girl I was seeing. Early in our conversation, it was established that I did not speak in Georgian. The son saw the photo and affirmatively nodded and spoke in Georgian to the hostess, briefly, and then turned to me, with a beaming smile and thumbs up, and said in English, "Very pretty. You lucky brother." He then in Russian asked if I texted her to invite her. I lied and said I did text her, and reiterated that she was arriving in a few hours. It was around 4 p.m. at the time, in a beautiful golden hour glow that lit up the surrounding mountains and valley. The son said he would join us and asked if I had liked cha-cha. Cha-cha is a very strong national liquor of Georgia, ranging from 30 to 75% alcohol content, and made from distilled grapes. I had become quite the savant of cha-cha, and despite some strange feeling about their fixation on the female visitor, I obliged. Cha-cha is not for the weak-hearted, but I was very used to consuming it at the time. I should have paid more attention to the very intentional placement of the shots he filled for us. but I pushed those misgivings aside and had the shot after a very traditional toast. Around 20 minutes later, I felt exhausted and ill, and excused myself from the room, saying I needed to take a quick nap. Walking to my room, I knew something was amiss. As mentioned in the beginning, I was fronting a questionable business, and I did have a firearm in my bag, and made a mental note to take it and put it under my pillow. But as one can imagine, it isn't easy to remember things, even on short term when apparently drugged. Despite failing to collect my weapon, I did close my blinds as the afternoon sun was blaring in the room, and I wanted darkness. Passing out around 4:30 p.m., I woke to darkness at 4:45 a.m. with a raging headache. My window shades were practically open despite me closing them before passing out. They were open with about 2 feet of space visible to the outside. My bags were not in the position I left them, and the television was on, and on high volume despite me never using it, and the door was partially closed. I peered out the window and didn't see anything, so I quickly went to my bag, retrieved my firearm, and went to the bathroom, with the intention of calling my coworker or a driver to pick me up. I had no self-service, and no Wi-Fi, despite having perfectly fine reception the day prior. I went back to the bed, with the weapon under the pillow, with zero desire to inclination to fall back asleep. After about an hour or so of pretending to be asleep, I saw the sun peer through the window to get a look inside. At this point, I was certain it wasn't my imagination playing tricks on me, and that I was in trouble. I came in around sunrise to find both the hostess and her son sipping tea on the deck, and told the hostess that my girlfriend was arriving soon on a bus, and that I'd bring her when it arrived. I grabbed my backpack and left my other bag to give the impression I wasn't fleeing. Got service immediately after leaving the property, and called a partner to pick me up. Old school businessman, who was floating the money I'd run the leading operation with. I told him the story and he said that he would handle it. And he did handle it. I still think about the foul-smelling hole the sun was digging. Last guest? Weeks later, I decided that wasn't the place or business for me, and applied to law school on the other side of the world. As my uncle started to get worried about the situation, we heard it. People in the woods. We didn't see how many because of the darkness. They were saying something. We all gather here by the blood of incoherence, and we incoherent again. Thee and thy, and more incoherence. As my uncle and I heard that, he yelled for his dogs to follow him out of the woods. As we all left, he turned his head back and only saw a slight movement of branches and shrubs, perhaps because the people were trying to hide. After that happened, he hasn't walked his dog in those woods, nor when it gets dark neither. So to the strangers in the woods, let's not meet.
Hey friends, thanks for checking out today's video. If you haven't yet, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button to be notified when I drop a new video or stream. If you guys want some more behind the scenes action, make sure to follow me on my social medias. Links to these will be provided in the description, including my public Discord. Also, if you'd like to support me and the channel, please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon, where $1 a month gets you early access to all my videos. With all that being said, I just want to say thank you, and remember, keep it spooky.